Do you only have a son?
No, I have a son and a daughter.
Oh, so you like me? You got both?
Yeah,
you got the full set.
Yep. So I got the nice balance.
Let's not dox their ages too much, unless you want to. But like, what region are they? Young?
Yeah, one is quite young, and is just in that developmental stage. The other, he's he's starting to become a man. And
so Danny asked me, surely boys are worse because they're lunatics. Wow.
So I was just saying, have you said like that you have kids before?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that surely girls are easier than boys.
That's like, look, I've got a boy and a girl, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, boys are, because he's like, boys are lunatics. I'm like, yeah, boys are lunatics. They are. But girls meet these boys who are lunatics and fall in love with them. And that's what you got to fucking worry about. And also, they'll just give you another thing. Think about, it's so funny. Everyone's got a girl. You're like, oh, just you wait. They're like, I've got a teenager. They're like, yeah, she's so sassy now. I'm like, you have no fucking idea. There's a switch that turns when they're about 12, 13, and it's an entirely different world. They've gone from a sassy daughter to basically another wife. And all the negotiation tactics, all the bullshit. Like, my daughter fucking bollocks me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's hard, man.
No, I heard somebody told me, I only have girls, so I don't know about what it's like to have boys, but somebody was like, boys break your stuff and girls break you. And I was like, that's so true. Just living, my house is all women, by the way. So it's my wife, my mother-in-law, and 4 daughters. And so it's like, dude, it's just me. I'm totally out, man.
You've got a project, though. One of them's the project, right?
No, they're all really good kids.
No,
really
but I thought one was like...
I have one who's a lot like me.
Yeah, that's the one.
She's the problem one, yeah.
Oh, man.
But I mean, family life is a good place to start from because we all... And I think it was interesting what we were talking about the sloth man earlier, or koala man, that, like we actually have something at stake. And you and me talked about this, that the idea that finally when that page turns and you're actually responsible for bringing up other human beings, you have a very different perspective of the future.
100%. Did you see the thing that JD Vance said recently?
Yeah, that we're run by crazed cat ladies.
But it's like it's kind
of
like
have no skin in the game for the future.
And on the face of that's like super triggering as like a statement.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of truth in it. Like if you have no stake in the future of your, like whatever it is, whether it's a business or a country, I think you make very different decisions.
Well, you're a child until you have a child. That's my perspective. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a path to adulthood for people who don't have the heavy burden of responsibility of raising a child. Mm-hmm. Maybe like war or something. Like it has to be something equivalent, like an equivalent responsibility. But like, I don't know, man. I meet a lot of 35, 40-year-old Peter Pans running around who they don't have children, they don't have responsibilities, they don't really have a lot going on. And that's just kind of normal nowadays. Like we have a lot of people in society that are like that. So I would say I'm very pro-natalist. Like you should have children. You should we should encourage that responsibility.
Yes, I mean their stake in the future is important, but politicians, their job is for the now and the future. Well, it should be. It is
sure, but this is the mess we're in. Is that we literally have monies that we all know are going to fail ultimately. So there's no conceivable way to plan in any meaningful way.
But you know how kids can grow up in your kind of image and have very similar values. Not always you get rebel kids, but I've become acutely aware of that in that I don't vote. I didn't vote. And I don't know if your schools have mock elections for the kids. It's coming up. My kids just don't vote in the mock elections. They spoil their papers because they know I do. But I've become acutely aware of it. And now what I've got across to them is just fucking ignore these people and build your life around what they do.
Right. Well, that's the practical reality of the system that we find ourselves in. I don't myself plan to receive any government entitlements. Like Social Security is technically, I paid in a lot of money to it. It's technically waiting out there for me, maybe, but I don't plan on receiving that. I make my plans for my future based on, what I'm able to accomplish myself, not what the government is going to give me. I just assume they're going to give me nothing, right? Mm-hmm. You should always assume that,
Well, but you probably won't need it.
Oh, I won't need. That's the point.
Yeah,
because I've made
People
plans.
don't need it. Yeah.
But there's this whole contingency of society that not only believes they need it, that they deserve it, and that they're entitled to it.
Yes, I mean they technically are entitlements in the political sense, right?
Yes.
you have to just discount them entirely, in my opinion, to live a normal, healthy, productive life. Yeah.
The recent thing that I've been working on with my kids is this understanding of Bitcoin, not on a like, oh, you need to be a Bitcoiner, in that you're going to inherit some Bitcoin when I'm gone, and you need to understand this. You need to understand what it is you're inheriting and the responsibility that comes with it. And I've been, again, something I've become acutely aware of, in that can die tomorrow, can die in 50 years. But if you die tomorrow and I haven't relayed this importance, like, what do they do with this inheritance? Because it all goes to them. I mean, they'll have a mentor in Danny, but like,
If I'm still here, we might be on the same plane.
yeah, if it keeps fucking turning. But but so like, and my son's embraced it. He's really embraced it. He's doing the work. He's listening to the podcast. He's learning about self-custody. But the morality of money as well. Like if he's going to inherit a certain amount of money, which, like, even if you had one Bitcoin they inherited, by the time you die, that one Bitcoin could be $1 million, $10 million. Like that's a serious inheritance. Like the role, like what he has to do with that.
Yeah.
So I put that onto his plate.
Well, Andy's going to inherit a football club, right?
That's the other thing he does, vice chairman. He is the club vice chairman.
Yeah. I mean, there's this like thought that, it's, I don't know, dynastic wealth is somehow immoral. And I think that dynastic wealth is, to me, it's just the natural course of events. I don't think there's anything immoral about it. I think I've never understood, there's this Thomas Sowell quote that says, like, basically I've never understood why it's greed to want to keep what you've earned, but then somehow it's not greed to want to take what others have earned, right? And that's the sort of societal conundrum we find ourselves in today. It's like, you earned your Bitcoin. You want to leave it to your children. I see absolutely no problem with that,
Yeah, there was I was talking to Danny about this the other day. There's like that criticism of dynastic wealth is similar to that we shouldn't have billionaires,
right,
or tax the rich. And I understand why, like, people feel like that. They're meant to feel like that. And I think there's a nuance to it in that we should celebrate success. We should celebrate people getting rich if they've done it ethically and they've been successful. We should use it as inspiration. But I think there's some nuance to it that you can have some criticism in that there's a structural problem that allows you, once you hit a certain point, you get richer because of the structural problems that's making other people poorer. I think I'm not saying we should be taxing people for that, but we should be acutely aware of it. And that's what we're not communicating. Like, left-wing parties in the UK are telling you that rich people are the problem, and they're not telling you why it's happened. It's the policies that have enabled them to own the assets and get richer.
Right.
And that nuance, no one shares that nuance because there's no interest in politicians sharing that nuance.
Well, we've been stuck with Karl Marx's shitty ideas for like 200 years now or something, right? And I think the reason that they resonate is because they have a grain of truth, which is that there are some psychopathic rich people who are,
Parasitic.
They're parasites, and they're doing it, at the destruction of, institutions or the commons or societal good or whatever it is. And those people always exist. And probably under the fiat system, we actually have more of them, right? And so there's I think there's a divide between Bitcoin wealth and fiat wealth, and that, one is, I mean, I'm sure Erik would agree with that. Like, one is inherently more moral than the other, because fiat is a parasitic, it's like the worst parasitic system that we've ever concocted,
Well, it's not just parasitic. Like, it's a highly dysfunctional one that, like, it fundamentally infects the substrate of thought itself. And that, like, we plug in authoritarian ideas as being fundamentally true. And, like, that's part of what's produced this inherent nihilism that's kind of ate everything, is because people can't think from a first principles place. And furthermore, the entire economic and climate reflects this kind of fiat thinking. And that's why, like, tax harvesting with your CPA and all this is like a real thing, that a bunch of people save tons of real money, but, like, nothing's actually happened other than a bunch of financial trickery, and like this is what the world has now produced. And that's why it's highly dysfunctional. That's why it's falling apart. And that's why we find ourselves at, the peak of a fourth turning cycle.
There's this quote from, I think it's Putin, who says, "I can't understand the American economy. It seems like they just sell houses back and forth to each other." And it's like, that basically is the American economy. There's like, the guy who drove me in my Uber today was telling me about his financial life and how hard it is and how he's living hand to mouth, you know. So I gave him a $200 tip and it like made his day, and he like cried a little, and like it was a whole thing just outside the Airbnb here. And I felt good about doing that, but I also felt like there wasn't enough time in this car ride for me to get through to this guy what the problem was. So, you know, I mentioned your show, I mentioned like the Dave Ramsey podcast. I gave him some like resources, and I was like, if you want to get your financial life in order, yada, yada, you got to do these things, right? But it's like, should a normal guy who, you know, is just the average guy, should he have to know all this shit in order to like be able to preserve his wealth and have a life of dignity and, you know, pay for the things that he needs to sustain? No, the answer is no.
No, what I'm going to disagree. I think he should, but I think the no bit is that should he be punished by a system that is designed unfairly? Like the incentive is unfair, but should someone learn, understand what money is, and, you know, referring back to that Mark Moss interview where he talked about the money game, where you want to have positive cash flow and then you want to store that in assets. We should teach that. People should know that. Like, you should know how to cook or a foreign language or play the piano. You should understand money. We don't teach that. Like I never got taught that by my parents. I observed what they did. I observed how my dad looked after us as a family, but he never taught me it.
Right.
And I don't think I would have taught my children it unless I started this podcast.
Yeah.
But in school, what do we teach? We're teaching kids. I mean, they've got these supercomputers in their pocket, and we're teaching them. We're teaching them to memorize facts.
Yeah.
We're saying go in that room, sit in rows, and here's a question: which facts did you memorize? But we aren't teaching them practical skills like they don't teach finance at school. Why not?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's the conspiracy theory is that it's like by design, right? I think the truth is like the people that create school curriculums don't know themselves.
Yes, no, they don't.
Like, I never had it. Did you ever have a teacher who seemed like they were living high on the hog? Like, I never knew anybody in, you know, college, elementary, whatever. Like, they were all dirt poor.
Well, who did the comedian, the stand-up? Was it Louis C.K.? He said it's like, it's the worst job in the world.
Yeah, he said it differently.
Yeah. He said, why would you? He's like,
He was funny.
Yeah. all right. Wedge your neck in. He said about like, if you're a teacher, there are no career prospects. It doesn't matter how you do, you won't get a promotion and you won't get more money, and you spend all day being yelled at by horny, angry teenagers. It's like, it's the worst job. And like, you send your kids to have this person teach you.
Yeah.
And then the curriculum, I mean, the curriculum is just, I think I'm not with the conspiracy on the curriculum. It just hasn't changed since the Victorian times. You know, put them in factories and teach them to count and teach them to, you know, to speak. And we've added a couple of things like sex education.
It's like it's like penmanship. Like, why the fuck does penmanship matter in the digital age? It matters zero. You know what I mean? It mattered because the British Empire was, you know, a naval empire that was run on pieces of parchment. So that's why penmanship mattered, because if you were going to ferry a message 6,000 miles, it needed to be readable, like when it landed, you know. But it doesn't matter with computers.
Well, how many people homeschool their kids and match the school curriculum?
Oh, no.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Are you homeschooling right now?
Yeah. And like one of the, from different dialogue I've had, I'm not too concerned about what and how he's going to learn. There's tons of resources, way more than have ever existed. I very much believe in kids naturally learn and have agency. My son's really smart and creative. He's reading like 5 grade levels above where he should be reading at. Like, I give him adult text now, and it's pretty weird that he can read them and comprehend them. So like, I think the entire education system is broken. And I've been thinking about like, to teach people finance, like, what does that even mean? And like, I'm very convinced that like, the naked truth is like, nobody actually knows what's going on. There's a bunch of other people that told them that this is how stuff is supposed to work. And that's why when you get all the way to the bottom, there's these quants that can like do these calculations and stuff. But like, they don't, like, this is so extrapolated and removed from the situation that like, they literally have no fucking clue what they're doing other than the math and that this is how it's supposed to work out. And the reason is because the entire system's broken. Like, it fundamentally doesn't make sense right now. And it's built and designed around horrific distortions in the economy that don't make any sense. Like, the fact that you can buy Boeing and Northrop Grumman stock and get rich off of war is this like hideous aberration. Like, why can you make money from killing people like that? And you can invest in that today and like buy stock in it. And it's like a really great investment right before if you front run a war, you know? So like, this whole thing is gobbledygook by design. So I don't know. I had to stab on that because I approached all of this from behind, to where I always really wanted to figure out what money was, and that forced me to study on my own. And that's part of how I came across Bitcoin, was because like none of this system made any sense. And why? Because it's all fundamentally broken, because it's all a huge lie that's based on authoritarianism. Sorry to go on my rant.
No,
please rant away. We want you here for your rants.
It's cargo cult engineering, right? It's like nobody really knows how anything's working, but they know if we wave our hands. Like, I was looking at the guy at the airport just now because I just landed before I came here. Like, I was like, this guy doesn't fucking know what he's doing. Like, what is this? What does this do? Does anybody know what these things mean when they wave the things around? Like, that's essentially the same thing with the financial system.
He's doing the Macarena.
Right. It's like, well, we do broad indexing with, an ETF strategy, right?
That goes another layer deeper of that, like, particularly in our world today. Like, I very much believe that people have fundamentally lost thinking. And when I'm saying thinking, I mean a rigorous process of chaining together reasoning and logic through a chain that follows. Like, most people just plug in the authoritarian answer they were given and things work as they're supposed to. But this is also why there's this divorce between Newtonian physics and quantum physics. We like understand there's something at the bottom that we can't put together that breaks the whole equation. And that's very similar to what's going on in the financial system.
People always tell me, they're like, you're so opinionated. Why do you have so many opinions? And I was confused by this like my whole life, because it's like, you're also a human who lives on Earth. Don't you also think about things? You don't think about the things around you and form opinions about them? Why am I being shamed for having opinions?
Do you get the answer? And they're just like, no.
Well, no. And then
why didn't you flip it back and go, why don't you have opinions?
Right. No, exactly. And I realized the answer is no. Most people are not thinking and forming opinions about the world around. Most people are fundamentally like incurious. And, a lack of curiosity is like essentially fatal. Like, if you're not curious, you are going to have a bad life. If you don't like know what questions, fuck the answers. If you don't know what questions to ask, you're going to have a bad life. And it's going to be your fault because you're incurious.
But do you think they don't have opinions, or they're scared to share their opinions?
I think they probably think their opinions are inferior, and that's why they don't want to share them, because they're not some sort of subject matter expert or something. And it's like, fuck that. Just shoot from the hip. This is America. We got free speech. Like, just say whatever you want. You can have any bad opinion you feel like it. It's better to have a bad opinion than no opinion, in my opinion. See what I did there?
I like that opinion. I heard someone recently talk about the fact that we are actually living in a socialist / communist regime right now, in that socialism is about owning the means of production. But if you look at it, the technocracy that we live in, or the co-opting of every large technology company, the fact that the tax system that we have, we essentially, the means of production is owned by the government right now.
Yes.
And we've walked into this without thinking about it. It's not like, I don't know, it's like China, they own 50% of every company, right? They own us through legislation. They own us through the chilling effect of if you don't follow what they've asked you to do, the tap on the shoulder, that you will be closed down or imprisoned. So we're kind of living in this weird pseudo-communist state at the moment that we don't realize.
Yeah, a crypto-communist state.
Crypto-communist state.
Well, that's what it is. It's a hidden form of communism that most people don't understand, because you can't remove the substrate to like go like, look, like this is how the government actually owns and affects everything. And that's the same reason why when I was yelling at people 4 years ago that price of eggs was going to be $15 today, lo and behold, it is. And they don't figure out that like that literally happened because of government action. The price of groceries has gone up double because the government went and did a bunch of stuff in the economy, like giving shitloads of money to foreign wars and other insane stuff, while not understanding that when you increase the money supply like that, you're going to inherently augment the entirety of the economy. So at this point in time, yeah, we like live in a very insane communist style republic, and it has all of the same trappings and corruptions as what we saw in the Soviet Union. And it's really scary because like when you actually look at that, it's like, oh shit, how do we actually address this in any meaningful way? And what's even scary to me is like, it's not just like the United States is doing this all by itself. Like these are interlocking mechanisms of why the whole COVID scare happened globally and Western governments all responded at the same time. Like our systems of government are way more close in the way that they're tyrannical to us as citizens than they are to actually representing what our individual values are.
Do you think this is by design or just organic because of the nature of who we are as humans.
It's organic, just because like the incentives have aligned that
yeah.
way. Like it turned out that like as a transnational company that influenced both the UK and America, like I can get favorable legislation from both. In addition to we have to incorporate the entirety of America's imperialist program that happened over the course of the Cold War, and how after that, like we kind of descended into this neoliberalist victory that corrupted itself and it's collapsing on itself.
There was this Peter Thiel quote where he was talking about the World Economic Forum, and he was saying, he went to Davos and he realized that there were no individuals present, that everybody was a representative on behalf of something, some government, some organization, some corporation, some NGO, right? And that everybody there was nobody there willing to stand up and say, this is wrong. This is fundamentally wrong.
Well, hold on.
Right?
Did you see Malaise speech there?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
But that was that was just the most recent one, right?
Fuck me. Man, like he went in and he just gave him to hard. Like hard. Was it like 30, 40 minutes?
I've not seen the whole thing.
He went fucking hard on them.
Oh, I'll have to check it
Yeah,
out.
it's great.
But in general, the idea is there's this transnational, diffusion of responsibility where we're all in this like socially Marxist malaise where, there are no individuals anymore who are present at any of these consequential meetings in Western society. And then these weird decisions get made, which is like, let's tell the naturalized citizens, the ancestral citizens of this place, wherever it is, Sweden, the UK, America, whatever, that they shouldn't be having children because of climate change, right? So let's like browbeat them about that. But then at the same time, let's like bring in North African migrants, and replace them at a high clip. And you're like, who's making this decision? It's such a weird decision. It's such an anti-Western, anti-human, anti individual perspective. And I don't know who's making it or who's behind it or where it comes from.
It's the same idiotic quant thing that's going on where like there's literally, they're like, we can import African labor because like labor is labor and it doesn't make any difference culturally about that. Derp, derp.
It's all about GDP, number one, right? It's all economic output. And then number two is I think the people that are liberals in this society who are more on the Marxist, side of the equation are basically saying like, we need slaves, but we don't want to call them slaves, but they're slaves,
But I think they're convinced they're being good people.
No, and
they're doing right.
That's the thing. It's like, we're now living in this society where you can like take a child who's having gender dysphoria, mutilate them, torture and mutilate them, right? In a way that's irreparable and tell yourself that you're a morally upstanding citizen for doing that. That's insanity.
Well, it's about the feel goodness of it.
Right.
Because like, look, like it feels really good to say like,
I'm an ally.
I want
I'm a trans
all people
ally.
that want to come
Right,
to
right.
America and work and be able to have an opportunity here. That feels really good. The problem is that I don't take the second step of thought to think, well, whose jobs are those going to replace? How does that change the labor market? And what are the consequences of those things?
Right.
Like that's a difficult thing to think about.
What happens
But instead
when-
I can just
right.
go, it feels good to have them come here. And if you don't want them to come here, I'm going to assume that you're probably bigoted in some way, and I need to hate you for having a difference of opinion. And the sad truth is we're now at this extreme place where
You're right wing. That's
Am
it.
I?
That's it. But
Right,
it's a
right. That's what they
pejorative.
say.
It's a conservative opinion. It isn't a conservative opinion. It's a right wing opinion, and then it's become a pejorative.
yeah, and like the thing is like anybody who's aware of who I am understands like I don't fit on this spectrum in any meaningful way.
Yeah,
Right.
And
But
to
they
me,
will call you that.
I get accusations of fascism specifically, but I'm never called right wing because I'm too far off of the
Right.
spectrum to like just be a normal right wing guy.
Well, look, you know what's happening with the podcast, right? You know the changes coming, and one of the conversations we're having is like it's going to be UK based. It's like how do we have strong conservative opinions and voices on this show without being immediately written off by half the public as being right wing? Oh, you're just right wing.
Yeah.
And like I say, conservative opinions. Which I think there's a lot of valuable conservative opinions. I think there's a lot of valuable progressive liberal opinions. I think there's a plethora of good ideas, but you immediately, if you hold one set of opinions, you're right wing, you're a fascist, blah blah blah.
Look, like this is the thing that you're specifically very good at, and that you just communicated importantly is that like you can see value in opinions on both sides, which is actually a really normal thing that people are so hungry for.
Hold on, but what team are you on then?
Well, and that's the whole point. It's like, fuck these people who have drove us into these extreme positions of teams where we can't have civil dialogue with each other and not disagree. Like, it's more important to me to get to the bottom of the issue and have sincere discussion with one another that's actually going to give me something to think about than get to browbeat the other and go, I'm right and better than you because my opinions matter more and you're hateful if not. Well, why don't you take a moment to think about for a moment where my hate might be coming from, what the difference of my opinion is. Maybe if you took the time and energy to understand where I'm coming from, you might learn something that gets you a little bit closer to me. But I find that most people that's just too intimidating because it threatens their identity or their ego or something. And that's just sort of the sad place we're in.
Or they're just fucking dumb.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fucking stupid people.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and look, like that's the big problem I have where people want to talk about political change is like, there's a lot of really fucking stupid people who are going to follow around anybody who tells them anything. And this conference is a great example of that. Like, like whatever Trump does, it doesn't make, it can't fix the problems with the money. And as much as I appreciate things that he's saying, directions that it could go, our political system's done. This is broken. It worked well for the last 200 years. It's fundamentally failing now. We have the technology to build something new. And it's time that as a generation, we actually stand up and start having the conversation of what do we do about a broken political system that wants to force us to hate, murder, and kill each other over economic means when we have a better way to do it now.
Yeah, I was having this thought about, I think I cribbed this from Jordan Peterson, which is essentially that like, we see rot everywhere in our society. There's just rot all over the place, right? All our institutions. And normally in nature, when you see something that's rotten or rotting, it's dead. And what you're seeing is the left behind structure of what it used to be, but it's no longer functional. It's decaying, it's dying, right? Or it's dead, now it's decaying. And I think that I can see that everywhere, that we're all walking around in this dream, like, all these structures are still living, breathing things, and they died a long time ago, and none of us realized it. And we're walking around looking at their rotting corpses every day, being like, "There's the bank, yeah, it's still functional," you know. And it's not, right?
Well, and to quote Nietzsche, like that's the putrefaction of God's corpse that like we finally have to smell to like realize what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and like now we have to ask ourselves those questions. Like, what rituals can we do to recover our God? Like, how is it possible to have this higher power when the horizon itself has been wiped away? And I think that's what we get with Bitcoin. It like turns out when we have like a hyper super language built on top of cryptography that exchanges value, we like now have a sophisticated enough thing to actually renew understanding what that truth is we're trying to get to.
Like, yeah, in that metaphor, like Bitcoin is a new life form, Bitcoin is a new structure, right? It's kind of almost like you add energy to a substrate and you get a structure, and then that structure is the thing that can be built on top of. So like, basically, like, yeah, you take proof of work. Yeah, have you ever seen like you put electricity through a table, and you know, a wooden table, and it'll branch out in all these crazy different directions, and it creates these cool patterns. People do it for like artwork, right? It's the same sort of thing with everything. Like energy provides structure wherever it goes. I was like, when you fly over a cityscape at night and you see the structure of a human city, it looks like a neural network in a brain, right? And so like Bitcoin is this new energy superstructure that is like a port between reality and the digital world, right? It's like this bridge between the physical reality and the digital world. And we don't really know where it's leading us, but we know it's super exciting. We know it's new and vibrant, and there's a lot of like
hope.
Hope.
Well, we do know a few things about it, and one seems to be like, we can't destroy it.
Yes. It seems to be incorruptible, at least until there's some larger energy superstructure that's able to destroy it.
Well, do you know what I find kind of interesting? And the thing that gives me hope with Bitcoin is that as Bitcoiners holding the asset, we hold the best asset there is. We all benefit from inflation. We all benefit from the money printer. But actually, we're all the ones that want it to end. Whereas a lot of the parasites within the fiat system, they want to perpetuate that system because they want their assets inflated. But we all want it to end.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd be benefited a lot more with like a true deflationary currency and like the, you know, multiplier effect that would add to global GDP. So that's the thing I'm actually interested in. Like, I think Bitcoin is colonization currency. I think it's for colonizers. I think we're all dirty colonizers. And what is the thing that we're colonizing? Space. We're colonizing the stars. You know what I mean? And yeah, we're gonna fucking enslave some amoebas along the way on Kepler 22b. That's our fucking right, goddammit. Human supremacy, bitch. You know what I mean? So
I don't know if I'm down with the human supremacy clause. Like I've met the DNT entities and like they're friendly and powerful. So
okay, then all right, then we colonize space for alien vagina. That's Erik's thing, and we're gonna go find them. You know?
I mean, I agree with you. And like, what I think is coming to happen is like we're witnessing the first truly global movement that allows for a collectivization of all people everywhere around a single form of money that is incorruptible.
Yes.
You know, and like I honestly believe like that's a messianic event. Like that is something that literally changes the face of humanity for the better and redeems humanity in a way that could only be done this way. Because like, you know, we take a look around, like stuff's not going super well. And like with stuff not going so well, it's really important to remember that like in 1945, humanity introduced a true existential crisis to biology itself. And like that's on the table. We could just snuff our asses out of existence and it's done. Mm-hmm. And to me, Bitcoin's one of the only ways that we get a course towards resolving that, particularly at the more extreme places where it's like, hey guys, we have this like gigantic nuclear arsenal that like we could convert to mine Bitcoin. You know, I'm like, I think that is actually a way that we will have strategic denuclearization, is that fuel will get used for creating nuclear power plants, which will be part of what gets us into space.
Yeah. And when you say you look around and things aren't going well, I also look around and I see things that are going well.
Well, like for us and like our little thing, but like if you like step outside of that and look around, like
but that's the point, right? For like every single business I have holds Bitcoin. We're okay. Look, my bars is always a great example, right? The costs have gone up, and we can't raise our prices because the costs have gone up for everyone.
Right.
We've got less disposable money to come into my bar. I'm seeing bars close down, but I'm okay. We hold Bitcoin, like we're okay. And so that is spreading. That is spreading out amongst everyone I know, like my friends, my cohort in the circle. So that's where the hope comes from. I've got this kind of, I don't know, I think you might either tear this apart or appreciate it. But I have this kind of like fantasy in Bitcoin in that we're going to replace this political elite of parasites who benefit from stealing from the system by a bunch of rich Bitcoiners who don't need to get paid. So they do the job out of a duty, like a civic duty, to improve things. And they're going to win votes and they're going to get elected. And they're going to come in with the ethics and morality to actually fix this shit. It's a fantasy, I know.
I mean, I greatly appreciate it, but why shouldn't we burn it down and hang the people that are involved with it for treason?
I mean, Michael Malice would agree with you.
I know. I really appreciate him.
Dear FBI,
He's a thoughtful man.
I'm not here. I'm not here. No.
Sorry, guys.
But what I'm saying is it gets replaced. Like once you can't steal from the system, it becomes a true meritocracy.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this new thing that's happening. I think JD Vance's coronation as vice president is like a canary in the coal mine for this, which is like young, sort of right-leaning, tech-enabled, anti-Marxist are getting together and forming a coalition. And the coalition, I think the Bitcoin conference this time is kind of the first meeting of these minds. Like, a lot of guys from Team Gray, the tech elites in Silicon Valley, have thrown their hat in the ring for Trump. A lot of people from Team Orange are throwing their hat in the ring for Trump. And it's sort of a similar coalition that came around the Reagan administration to be anti-Marxist, anti-communist, specifically anti-USSR during Reagan's time. But like, it's hard to get the conservatives together or people on that side of the fence. And when they do create these sweeping changes to structure when they go through.
Well, it's not just country singers.
Well, no, I'm saying
you've got Elon Musk.
Exactly. There are a lot more. Yeah, it's not just the Hawk Tuah girl, right? It's like,
And did you see that interview with Zuckerberg the other day, where he's got his like new hair, he's got his
like all sunburned.
Yeah, he's got his like gold chain, and
he's gearing up for a presidential round.
Well, but the interesting point is where he said he's not going to throw his hat into the ring as who he would support, but like I think he's clearly
supporting Trump
because
he said that photo of Trump is the most badass thing he's ever seen in his life, and like. It is badass. I mean, he got shot in the face and he stood up and was like, fight, for America. Like, that's great. Everybody, who doesn't love that?
But I think
only the commies.
I think it's very easy to co-opt people into like liberal progressive ideas. But when their companies are facing existential threat from these fucking liberal progressive ideas, you can see how they may be going, well, hold on, I'm not going to fucking destroy my company for this.
Right. I mean, yeah, Microsoft shut down its DEI division. A lot of people are shutting down their DEI divisions, et cetera, because America, I mean, I think there's just this realignment, at least in America, I'm seeing of like core American values, which is America is supposed to be a meritocracy. And we're not supposed to have strong in-group preferences. That's like a sin in American life, right? So like if I was like, I only like Irish Catholics because I'm Irish Catholic, that's kind of sinful, right? It's kind of sinful to say that about if you're a black female also. It's like we're supposed to all exist on, you know, the benefits of our merits and be judged by the content of our character. Like that is the American aim and which we're striving for. And like, yeah, it's hypocritical because we never have reached it, but like it still is the right aim and we should still be geared in that direction, you know?
And still massively skeptical of Donald Trump.
We should be skeptical of every politician. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Get started.
this system can't be fixed by any politics. Like, we can elect Jesus Christ himself, and like the system won't be solved.
They would kill him.
Like, do you?
Yeah, of course. They killed him last time.
Do you think they'll kill the Messiah
Again.
Oh my!
Isn't it funny
man.
that every time somebody's like, hey man, you guys should just get along and love each other, we're like, fuck, kill this guy.
Yeah, I agree with him on this point.
Yeah.
We needed to kill him immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and to me, like, this is my great hope is that, like, I see the whole thing falling apart no matter what. And my real call is that, like, we need to start talking about how do we create the system that comes after it. It's not like the founding fathers sat around and they were like, hey, you know what we really need? We just need a new king. That's what we really need. We need a new king to come in place. And to be fair, there actually was a fair number of guys that were quite pro-monarchic, but they really wanted to...
Didn't they want to make George Washington king?
They had offered him the possibility of that happening, but he also knew what that would become.
Of course.
Right.
So what's more interesting is like when George III was told about that, he stood up in shock and he was like, if he does not accept that, he will become the greatest man who ever lived.
And then he did become the greatest man who ever lived, like one of them, you know?
And that's because he made the choice to create a dynastical change in human history that allowed to say, people actually have God-given rights that come from them, and it's not just from a unitary sovereign. Because the idea was like literally like, yo, you're like my property and I can like rape, kill, and pillage from you because like I'm the strongest and you're the weakest. Because check out, I got like swords and bitches and like knights and stuff. So like, bend over. And they were like, no, actually, like people are dignified by God himself who allowed for this opening where it naturally occurs that we can have freedom of speech, that we should be able to own property, that we should get to pursue happiness under what that means for us. There's a huge potential with the technology we have, with the ability to create decentralized applications and the way to use robust applied cryptography to create a new organizational structure for everybody, so that this question of politics and how we organize ourselves is resolved once again for the next 250 years. But that's only if we get serious about understanding how much this system has failed us, how much it betrays us, and how every single time we play this goddamn game of acting through hope, making promises, getting all riled up for change, and what do we get after it? We get a bunch of kids that get drone bombed in the same fucking way as the last administration. And to me, this is the despicable and deplorable thing that we have to deal with, is that there's a mechanism of horror and death that our money directly contributes to, and we have no democratic processes to actually resist it. And furthermore, when we do try to resist it, we're criminalized. And one of the key points that they pointed out in the Nuremberg trials was that all citizens everywhere should have the right to resist unjust wars, according to if they're murdering people outside of the legislative context. Like, it is fucking crazy to think that each of us are held captive to pay into this war machine. And to me, that's what Bitcoin has always represented, is that I can actually say no now. And yeah, maybe they can lock me up or do whatever they want, but they can't have my money.
You're giving me a hard on right now. I'm just going to be honest. Just like, keep going, man.
You're an attractive man as well, but
just
I'm
keep
not
going,
interested.
man. Just keep going. Just like...
Now that's the dream. What Erik laid out is the beautiful dream. It's the anarcho-capitalist fantasy. But what is the reality on the ground? Because like the truth is that the system is not going to collapse in on itself all in one fell swoop, and that parts of the system will live on for hundreds of years as well. And so where is the merge point between Bitcoin and the system, and what does the new world look like with them in this unholy union?
Okay, but there is like elephant in the room. There is a collapse. There is a fucking world war. Whereas something I always thought world wars were things that happened in the past, and I see the pockets of conflict. And I see the alliances being built.
You're saying there's a World War III now?
I'm just saying,
or like, I think about to happen? Or
I mean, I think you can make a solid argument. There is a it's like a halfway between a cold World War III and a hot World War III right now.
I think that's true. Yeah.
And that is being, and I'm repeating things other people have said to me as well, but I feel it. But you see these pockets of conflict.
Something I'm worried about too is that if America has a 10-year period of being focused entirely inward, so like if America goes to civil war or something approximating civil war, that there will be 50 to 100 wars that break out all over the world, because the power vacuum that will be created by that will be just insanely large, and we'll see widespread conflict if that occurs.
I just always thought it was something in the history books. I thought we were beyond world wars.
We thought we were watching a movie, right? And then it's kind of like Inglourious Bastards, where like the movie screen just lights on fire, and all of a sudden, like you're like, no, you're in a theater that's burning down. Like that's what's happening. Is like reality broke through the movie. And we're now living through history, and we can all see that. And anybody's saying like, I can't believe history is happening, man. Like we actually all sound retarded because we grew up brainwashed from like, the the uniparty moment in the late 90s where like, effectively communism had been defeated in quotes. The USSR was no more. And then, America could just do whatever the fuck it wanted. Right. And we all were brainwashed into thinking like it's over. We've all reached some sort of Western egalitarian atheism or human secularism or something. And none of that was true. It was just a fantasy. It was an illusion.
It's funny because I've heard a critique specifically like Francis Fukuyama in The Last Man of History of that like liberalism just won and like now it's time for a victory lap. Like I think he was totally true. He was totally right. Like it just turned out that the truth of that fact is that like liberalism was actually this like hideous thing that when it ripped its mask off, it was just like, I'm just about corruption and money. Like I don't give a fuck about liberal values. I give a shit about me. And we sort of descended into this hideous, corrupted, like dog eat dog world. I'm just going to watch out for me. Fuck everybody else because that's the maximum principle. And we learned that with communism being defeated, right? Mm-hmm. And this is sort of where we're at is that now we exist in this world that's falling apart because everybody is so self-concerned about securing for themselves and greed. And there is no higher power. There's no reasoning. Like it's the totality of nihilism eating everything.
But isn't that why capitalism works? It's because we are greedy. That's why we have had innovation and growth and new technologies because capitalism.
This word capitalism. What does it mean?
All right, look, competition, capitalism, like aspiration, whatever version there is.
Free market principles are fundamentally different from capitalism.
I know, but bear with me. Just the idea of you want to create a life for yourself, and if you work hard, you can earn money, you can buy nice things, you can enjoy a nice life, whatever like definition you want to give to it, whatever keywords. But that drives it. But also that means rooted in us is that innate kind of like desire for stuff and growth and money, and so. The problem that's not what we want to neuter. We don't want to take that away because that has led to the innovation, to great technologies that I'm here, sat with you, and Danny's here, and we've traveled from all over the world. And if I'm not, I can text you when I'm in the bath and say, yo, HODL, I'm having a bath. How are you?
Which does happen.
Which does happen, by the way. Yeah. We don't FaceTime, just text. But like we can do that. Or I can FaceTime my kids when I'm away working. Or like if if I get sick, if I get cancer, there are procedures that can maybe cure me. Like that kind of, we've got that. But within that, there's like this darker side because we become too greedy. So like the problem is like we all have it within us to make this place a better place, but we go too far. We need something. It's like technology, as you said. It's technology can stop us going too far.
The greed thing's totally fine. It's again that substrate of the way that fiatism inherently distorts the entirety of what it is. And like that's one of the reasons that like you can find an applied cryptography software programmer and he's going to be paid $500,000 a year and another $500,000 bonus. And he might not even have the most rudimentary understanding of how to grow food or wash his own dishes. And that's fine. He can pay for everything. But like that would have never have happened in an economy that developed on top of a gold standard where the entirety of the thing wasn't taken over by the banker class. And so to me, like we're like 150 years deep into this highly augmented economy that like we don't really understand all of the consequences of how that played out. And so it's not that greed is the problem. It's that this substrate that it's built on top of is the problem. And again, like with all of the developments that we had over the last 70 years specifically towards this sort of war economy that created that built the computer. Like it's really important to understand that like the computer it wasn't like, I have a great idea and I'm going to make a computer. No, like this was unequivocally the most important project outside of the Manhattan Project was the development of the computer for cryptographic analysis to break the Enigma machine. And then after we did break the Enigma, then we had to do the statistical analysis for us to figure out who dies and who wins so we don't reveal our hand to the Germans. And then it became an entire war about computational science that only happens when you have a state that has committed their entire economy to a war function. And we've been in that for 70 years. So I think it's highly ironic that it was only through this strange, unnatural development that we got the keys to the kingdom to actually liberate ourselves. And that was highly sophisticated cryptography that it extended itself so far in advance that now we can provably say that if I have something encrypted, I can say that you will never be able to crack that.
By the way, if you'd like to see the Enigma machine, if you come to Bedford in April, I'll take you. It's like 25 minutes from my house.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where Bletchley Park is?
Bletchley Park is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's only 25 minutes from Bedford?
Only 25. Yeah, Bletchley's like within Bedfordshire.
I mean,
Interesting.
The Shire of Bedford.
that would be like a really legit day trip because I'm pretty sure they have lots of really interesting information at the museum.
Jamie was our hut H. She went to visit when she
Yeah.
came to Bedford. She bought an annual pass and gave it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
You should come there. But
Yeah.
no. Look, I'm with you. But it's like, it's almost like we need these. You had a constitution previously to protect against the ills of man, but unfortunately, people found a way to just fucking ignore that. Like it feels like decentralized technology is now the enforcement of some form of constitutional rules to get us dickheads to behave.
It's law. Like that's all. Like all that we've done is we've rediscovered law. The difference is instead of utilizing violence to enforce that law, we've chose a totally different strategy that has nothing to do with prohibition or punishment.
Yeah.
And like that's a radical thing because it kind of inverts the entire dictum of what law is on its head. I have a great quote from Michel Foucault where he takes Satoshi Nakamoto's quote about, like we can win new political freedoms, but we haven't cut off the king's head yet or something like that. That's a quote that comes specifically from Foucault where he's talking about political strategy. And he's saying the political strategy has to be that we need to cut off the king's head in order to make sure that this kind of a system can't apply itself. And to me, that's what Satoshi Nakamoto did because he made a system that instead of it having a head that could be cut off and collapsed, he made a system that's headless. That's what a decentralized network is. There's no point that you can decapitate.
And there's a big difference between code and law, and that law is based on language as its substrate, and language has drift. So, we couldn't go 1,000 years in the future and speak to people who speak English, and we couldn't go 1,000 years in the past and speak to people who speak English because we'd be speaking entirely different languages, right? Like, imagine just going back like 20 years and being like, yo, bro, you got that lit meme about that dude who had infinite riz, like skibbity-doo, like whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, the fuck are you talking about? So like language is always constantly evolving and it's drifting. Math, numbers are not drifting, right? And so that's like, hopefully we have more stability there,
Well, yeah, and then like that's what's so important is that we've now made an advancement for contractual law that has nothing to do with language anymore, but it has to do with mathematical proofs.
Right.
And like now that allows for us this sort of super language, if you will, that can only speak in verifications or not.
Yeah.
And utilizing that function, and particularly when it's on a global ledger that's collectivized using this fair rule set, using energy, blah, 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 this creates an extremely powerful global structure that anybody can access that's part of the internet, which it's really important to understand. Like the internet is this fucking freak thing that popped up 30 years ago and nobody really expected it to consume the entirety of the world. And for what, like 8 out of the 10 billionaires today, they're all tech company entrepreneurs. Like there's a reason for that. And it's because, in my opinion, the internet already is its own global political network. It just hasn't recognized itself or the means towards those rights, which I believe Bitcoin and cryptography gives to it.
Yeah.
We just need to recognize that's what's going on.
Yeah. Once you have some sort of authority that's accepting taxes, that has the ability to protect some, whoever, the netizens, then you have a government.
Yeah. And it turns out that we have miners that we pay fees to in order to process our transactions,
Right.
which is like our form of governance.
Right.
It's a very different world though that I don't think people are truly ready for.
Oh no, nobody's
Like,
ready for this.
we're
We're not
gonna-
even ready.
Yeah,
for
I'm
that.
not ready.
Yeah.
No, but at least we, and certainly yourselves, and can articulate very well. You see an answer, whereas most other people's answer is like we just interviewed Russell Brand, and he said, "Well, and in 4 years you vote for another party because that one was shit, and the new party that's a good
Right,
one, but
right.
then in 4 years they're shit, and you vote for another one." They constantly like regurgitating the same thing. I think
Yeah.
the reason a lot of us vote is that we've realized, oh, that's never going to be the answer now.
Yeah,
this is a potential answer.
Right. I don't think, well, It's an answer. Is it the correct answer? Yes. I mean,
Well,
just straight up, like it is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Because nobody else has any cogent plan that they can articulate, that's got the same energy surrounding it as Bitcoin does.
Well, you put your hope in another political party, or you become nihilistic, or you understand that there is a technological solution.
Back to the Trump thing. I don't know. We don't need Trump. Bitcoin doesn't need Trump.
No.
What we need is to be left alone. Okay. And whoever will leave us alone the most, that's the person who's getting my vote. So the Biden administration did not leave us alone at all. They kept trying to fight us tooth and nail every second. It was a horrible administration. And so we do need to change over from that administration with literally a Manchurian candidate who was fucking asleep the entire time, / has Parkinson's or something, Alzheimer's, dementia. We don't know what he's got.
All of them.
Right. And so, yeah, we need to change because we were actively being, they were trying to crush us. They were trying to quash us. Right. And so what I want is protection. That's what I want. I want to be left alone.
I want to take a totally different direction from you.
Yeah.
Instead of being left alone, I want to build an alternative political movement that wants to bludgeon everyone with how right we are and how important it is that they understand how wrong they are. Like I will hammer this point over and over. It does not matter what red or blue person you elect. The financial system is failing, and there is no conceivable way that these people with these tools that built this horrific apparatus that is collapsing can solve this. And they are gaslighting all of us until we are all impoverished and can't buy food anymore. We should probably think very seriously about the consequences of that and actively start organizing ourselves to respond to it. Because again, no one is coming to save you. There's no political parties with the answer, and your vote doesn't matter. The deep state controls this whole thing, and all they want you to do is sit down and shut up and be a good little citizen who pays their taxes and doesn't rock the boat.
But what does respond to that mean?
Yeah, what is your alternative political movement? Is it inside of politics or outside?
It's outside of it. It's a fundamental refusal to have anything to do with this current political system and start making real and active dialogues about how we could respond to it. So this isn't going to have anything to do with the state or politics. You could call it that, but it's not about a returning of a cycle. It's about breaking that cycle. There is no revolution about it. It's about making something fundamentally different that can actually serve us in a meaningful way.
So are you disappointed with how Bitcoin has responded to Trump being at this conference?
Absolutely. I think it's really sad to see how quickly somebody can pump their bags and how happy they'll be about it. I've always maintained pretty much I got into Bitcoin for ethical reasons. I'm really happy that it's performed better than any other financial asset on the planet. And it did that because of my ethical approach to it. It didn't do it because I was like this could be a great investment. No, I was like,
right.
Humanity either
you
destroys
should tell a story
itself.
about why you got into Bitcoin.
Can we come back to that? Because I want to talk about that pump your bags thing. Because I think there is a solid pro argument for pump my bags. Pump my bags, Trump. Give me the Trump pump. I'll tell you why. There are people when they have fuck you money will do fuck you things.
Yes.
Okay. Just on a personal level, you're talking about an external political movement.
Yes.
I'm heavily considering in a micro scale running for mayor of my town of Bedford. And I won't need paying because I don't need the money. See, they don't have to pay me. And my mandate will be very small and very clear. Every single year we will reduce tax and you will have to find a way of a balance in the budget. We will have a freeze on recruitment. I will do all the things, I will do all the things that the Bitcoiners have talked about, and I will go on the inside and do it.
Are you independent?
I'll tell you the strategy offline because I don't want my political opponents to know what strategically I want to do.
He's a Tory.
No.
I don't know anything about UK politics.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it offline just in case the mayor, Tom for Change listens. I'll tell you about it afterwards. But the point being is just go in there and throw the curveballs in. Every tax I can get rid of will go eventually. Not overnight because people can't handle that. It's a 1% reduction mandated per year. A freeze on recruitment. Get out of the way of everything. Stop printing pamphlets about bullshit we don't need. Just cut all the costs. You say get out of the way. Who was it I was talking to? I think, was it Lop? Somebody said to me, he said, oh, your campaign slogan is, vote for me, I'll do nothing.
Yeah,
I'll get out the fucking way. But I'm thinking on the inside because I think, okay, look, if we're right, if our thesis is right that we need to get out of the way, Well, let's go and get out of the way. And what happens in that scenario? Like if somebody goes in and they actually are a successful mayor, it's like, oh, look, what's going on in there in Bedford? Why do they have no debt? Why do people have more money? Why are the businesses more successful? And that itself can be its own virus.
Yeah.
But I might be being completely naive and pathetic.
I really appreciate that fantasy. And like, I hope it becomes a reality. And I hope that you'll be the first of many Bitcoin first politicians who go to the inside and work at it. One of the reasons that I celebrate, what BPI Institute is doing is like, I think that's a really important role. I am totally uninterested in it. And I think it ultimately ends with getting compromised in one way or another. Whereas urgently separating yourself from that system, making it very clear, at least for us here in America, that both the Democrats and the Republicans are full of traitors who have misserved our country more than anybody else, and we should speak of them as enemies more so than anybody else, is really important. And also, like, my own personal political solution has much more to deal with the state legislative system and the balance of different powers that we're supposed to have in the United States and exploiting that for essentially disassembling the federal government.
I agree with everything Eric's saying, but I'm optimistic about the future. I'm more optimistic. I'm more on your perspective, Pete, of like, I do think we can get in there and change. And to me, it's not like, I don't want to settle scores with the current system. I just want to be left alone to do what we need to do and live good lives. Like, you know what I mean?
What about burning it down?
Yeah, I don't, it's like, do you need, okay, if a person is 650 pounds, do you need to go over to their house and kill them? Or will nature take care of it?
I mean, nature will probably take its course, but like
maybe you could send
he might be suffering a lot.
You could send some crumbled cookies to their door to speed the process if you really, you know what I mean?
Well, that's just going to give him cancer instead of his obesity.
Or take some cameras and make a TV show about it.
There you
go. My 600-pound life. It could be both.
I mean, and that's what I think is that like, I'm a big fan of plurality of tactics. It's like, look, we're all going to win. And so like,
yeah.
Every front that there is matters in a meaningful way. And like my personal role is like, I'm an insane anarchist guy. Like I'm not interested in participating in that system. And like, I'm interested in these ideas of radical freedom.
Yeah.
I get that doesn't vibe with a lot of people, and that's fine. Difference is that the current political system would like to make me a dissident from my sort of beliefs.
Right.
And they would usually try to attack me financially first and cut me off in a number of tertiary ways. Mm-hmm. They can't do that anymore. Like I've met a number of people who are like astounded. They're like, you're an actual free agent. Like you can curse and say like all of the insane screwed up stuff that you want. And they're like, nobody's going to fire you.
Yeah.
I'm like, think of how sad that is that we live in a day and age where we're actually promised the freedom of speech, and yet most people choke themselves for a number of reasons to where they can't say what's true, which I think is why we've seen a lot of the insane cultural Marxist stuff play out, is because a lot of people feel like this doesn't feel good for me, but you know what? The moment that I speak up, I'm a bigot, I'm racist, I'm far right, I'm a Nazi. And like this is something that they really have perfected in the last 5 years, is figuring out how to cancel you. And like, I'm pretty sure we all have very cancelable things in our past that could get dredged up and paraded around at some point in time.
Of course.
That could get you fired from your job, have you lose your bank account.
With Pete and the hooker and the whole deal, I mean?
Wasn't there like
sandwich day?
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you should say that, because I was discussing this with my brother. I was like, I do have some things in the past. I've done a few things.
I've just thought of one that I think I've seen.
I got a few things. I said what I would do is on my campaign platform, I'll say, here's all the bad shit I've done. Right, this is why you should vote for me.
Lay it out there.
Yeah, here it is. I sold weed at university. And,
it's the 8 Mile playbook.
Yeah, it's the 8 Mile playbook.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't work for Drake, by the way, when he tried to be like, I knew you was going to call me a pedophile. That's what a lot of people say about me. And everybody's like, wait, what? Why do a lot of people say that about you? What's going on?
Yeah, but there are certain things. There are certain
You don't be like, yes, I did text underage girls, whatever. You don't do that. That's not good.
I mean, the other honest truth when I lean into thinking about it is the other reason that I issue this political system is, look, like, I think most people are fucking morons. I think they're dumb as shit and can't think at all. And so I don't see, I think this democracy thing has failed. And I think it's also very important to understand, like,
actually, this is it succeeding. This is democracy
and that's my point. Like, the founding fathers were keenly aware of the dangers of democracy, which is why they explicitly made a republic that explicitly had voting rights. that were tied to the capacity and ability for somebody to own property.
Right.
Like that's why that was done. They weren't like, hey, by the way, like, fuck all these black people and women because they suck and they're worth less than us. No, they're like, we need to actually have like a governing system that is meaningful, where people who are tied to the land have a meaningful investment and right towards figuring out how the laws of that land should be governed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be like, I believe in democracy. I believe in representative democracy under a constitutional republic, but I would like it to be net taxpayers. You know what I mean? I don't really actually want anybody who's not a net taxpayer voting, because you're just a leech in that case. But you could be a billionaire leech and you're still a leech.
Well, this is my other thing, is like this thing we call democracy today, like, it's definitely not democracy in like the woo way that we look at it. And so like, you know, like we're from separate states. Like why the hell don't our rights matter in one other state? But in the federal level, they do. And so like, it's all this like democracy with a specific subset of people that we've chosen to do that with. It's like,
like, you have a license to carry, but I can't come to your state to carry because I'll be arrested.
Like you like smoked weed in 1996 and were caught. Like, like you don't get voting rights. Like this is all bullshit. You know, like the whole idea that it's democratic is garbage. Yeah. In addition to the fact of that, now we're augmenting and changing how those systems are understood. Like,
well, and also, what does it mean to like vote your conscience when your conscience can be gamed by a big tech algorithm, right?
Or more like I'm going to give you $1,000 free when you vote for me.
Yeah.
Like that means
but
I love
also
you.
Just I can run a brainwashing operation on you, and I have been, by the way, since the mass media age, and now I'm doing it with ever greater clarity into your life. And I know what you think before you know what you're going to think, right? Like I have a friend who built an algorithm that predicts when people are going to move, and it knows when people are going to move 2 weeks before they know they're going to move, right?
So it's like Amazon knows you, like if you're pregnant before you do.
Right. So what does it mean to vote your conscience or whatever in a world in which you're being brainwashed by big tech algorithms, right? And it's like, we know that the 2013 US NDAA allows the military to run psychological operations on the public. Yep. So when you're interacting on Twitter, you're interacting with like a Pentagon level PSYOPs campaign and a bunch of ChatGPT bots who are like, if you express an opinion that's outside the narrative window of control, they're going to be like, yeah, Pete, you suck. Fuck you. You're a bitch. I hate you. You're fat too. By the way, look at your face. You fucking ugly piece of shit.
All right.
That's the YouTube comment.
I was just going to keep criticism, but give me a moment to respond.
That's a very personal psyop.
I was going to keep going until someone stopped me.
Yeah. Danny's far from perfect too.
But it makes you think that there aren't people out there that support you when there are people out there that support you because you're having a Pentagon level PSYOP run on you.
Well, and this is like the hilarious thing about Nostr is like you go on and you're like, yeah, like, this is
pleasant.
nice.
It's just
like
pleasant.
people being kind. Like seeing a couple things, they're like, all right, I can close it now. Like it doesn't have the emotional hooks and triggers that like has you
because of that.
No. And it's ironic that like it probably won't get traction in the same way all these other apps got, because like they don't have all these hideous psyop hooks that are designed to just like emotionally pump you.
But it's boring in a good way, because it used to be that the internet was an escape from your real life, and nowadays your real life is an escape from the internet. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like touch grass, bro. It's like put away your phone. Like we have all these things we say to each other. It's like, you got to get in touch with reality, man. You're losing it. You're fucking all into this internet shit, blah, 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 because it is literally destroying all of our minds. Yeah. Like when I watched the pandemic happen, I was like, this is the first first social media induced hysteria that's global, you know? And I grew up with a mentally ill parent. So I know when I see mental illness, and I have over the last 10 or 15 years, I have seen mental illness increase in the general population with people who would never have expressed these extreme political opinions. Like the Erik Casons of the world would have always been like this, like no matter what, right? Like Erik was going to be an anarchist with or without the internet. But like,
well, to be fair, I had to push myself into anarchism. I was a communist before I found Bitcoin.
Right.
And now you're a communist because you're in Bitcoin.
Horseshoe theory. He would have been on either side of the political spectrum, right? Like, but I'm saying like normal people wouldn't have expressed these opinions, but they're now being corrupted by these algorithms, and you know they've been brainwashed basically, and it's making them insane. And it's
and like the sad thing is like very few people are aware of how much their buttons are pushed and how much they're programmed. Because first of all, like when you say like you're being manipulated by the algorithms, like it's pretty easy to be like, this is like crazy talk. What would that be? But like when you actually start to dig into it and look at it, like it's true that that's going on. And like I find the hilarious thing is that like, yeah, like they can predict all this stuff about you. Like they can read your mind. And it's like in classic literature, it's like, holy shit, like what would they do with such an amazing superpower? It's like sell you garbage from the internet. Like it's just so kitsch and it's product. It's just like
it's like, bro, they are literally brainwashing you so that you buy 2.8 pairs of Nikes per year rather than 2.2 pairs of Nikes.
Well, like it's just like Camus's absurdism playing itself out.
Yeah.
It's like so like this was the point. Like you wanted to get the superpower to read my mind to like sell me more garbage.
It's so fucking stupid when you say it out loud. It's so stupid.
Well, like, and there's just like other facts that are so absurdist. Is that like, you know, people will talk shit about Bitcoin mining's energy usage and AI data centers. Like, look at the amount of energy that data centers from porn pulls. Like, it's fucking absurd. It's like half the internet.
It's like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. They know if you're the type of person who's like cheating on your spouse, right? And then they also have a subcategory where they know that if you're the type of person who's cheating on your spouse, you're much more likely to buy XYZ product.
Yeah.
Right? So they specifically target people who are like moral degenerates and then sell them products based on it. We're living in Black Mirror. Is
that what we really want to allow for ourselves to be reduced to?
We've already been reduced though. So what do we do now that we are reduced?
We rip its fucking throat out and watch it bleed out because we have Bitcoin. And like these dumb motherfuckers right now are parading the Trojan horse into Washington, D.C. being like, duh, we like won. We're going to get CBDCs and control. Like they don't understand. They're like, there's like a bunch of crypto anarchists and cypherpunks like inside that thing that are like building in what's going to rip out the fundamental structure of your financial system.
By the way, it's equally stupid on our side because the Bitcoiners are inside the Trojan horse being like, look at us, we're inside this horse. You can't even hear us from in here. Fuck you.
Well, I'm like,
right?
It like appropriates
like, hey, man,
retards on all sides, right?
You might want to be quiet when you're in the horse, bro. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's pretty wonderful. You know, I'm like, because same thing. Like the dudes that we loaded up in the Trojan horse were like, we're gonna go into Troy and they're gonna celebrate us as being these brilliant people. And it's like, well, we might be setting fire to the horse when you get inside, but it's a good play for you guys.
It's a 50-50, you know. We don't know what's gonna happen.
Are you not having fun though?
I am having fun, but I'm not saying poor. You know, that's the problem.
Look. If it's all fucking falling apart,
yeah.
Isn't it just good to be at the coalface of the revolution? To be part of something.
Well,
like if like one, we might all be nutters and have our own collective illusion about Bitcoin and what it can do, and it might not fix shit. We don't know. But if it did, the fact that we get to sit at the front of this, like we're not just in the Trojan horse. We're at the fucking front of it.
No, I do have this, maybe it's grandiose or a delusion, but I do have this sense that we're doing something important. I always feel that way, right? Now, maybe it's a grandiose narcissistic delusion.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just feel called. I don't think I would have wasted 10 years of my life on this if it wasn't important. But maybe I'm just that stupid. So it's like hard to know.
No, to me, like this is actually the most problematic space right now is our still lack of hesitation and understanding like, look at what it's done over the last 14 years. Like this thing is ripping harder than anything has ever ripped before. Like out of all of the experiences and places and things I've done in my life, unequivocally here is a high frequency of people that have a deep spiritual understanding of what they're doing is trying to push good out into the world in the most meaningful and powerful way that they can possibly do it. And again, like, to me, that represents something extraordinary in the concourse of human experiences. And like, I know it's really hard to fathom, but like, what if this actually is your way that you can fundamentally change the world, make Bedford a better place, and be remembered in the concourse of history as someone who did something positive to change the world in a meaningful way for your great-grandchildren? Like, what could it mean if in 2145, your great-great-grandchildren get to stand at a plaque in Bedford and be like, yeah, Peter was my great-grandfather, and I'm really not proud of that stuff that he did in the late 2020s, but he really made up for it in the 1930s with the other choices that he made.
I want more than a fucking plaque.
Like,
I want a statue at least.
Fair enough.
They're like, yeah, he killed a few hookers, but he was a good guy.
Yeah. Net good. Yeah.
Well, for us to actually really take seriously what's going on, to me, like that's the actual political task. Because like when we take that really fucking seriously, we understand instead of, us being 20,000 strong at a conference that the major political parties of the most powerful nation on earth are pandering to, we should maybe take that really fucking seriously for a moment, that we're a political force to be reckoned with, and we shouldn't prostitute ourselves to the first person that comes out and says, hey, I'm going to say that I like Bitcoin too. Yeah?
Yeah.
Instead, maybe we should stand back and say, you need to qualify yourself to us, and you need to prove to us that you're actually going to be the candidate that's going to do something meaningful for us, and we're not going to give you anything until then.
It does show that it's a sign of success that arguably the most famous person in the world is parroting our talking points, the things that we think and believe, the things that we were saying to each other 10 years ago in hushed tones are now being spoken about on one of the biggest, global stages in the world.
Well, it's what Jack Mallers just said to us a few moments ago. It's like Donald Trump needs Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't need Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
And it's the same for every single person, company, whatever. You all need Bitcoin, but it doesn't need you.
Yeah. And the Democrats need it too. You know what I mean? And listen, we don't trust what the fuck they say. And like, I'm going to vote for Trump, but I'm not a sycophant for Trump. I'm not in the MAGA cult. I want him to do what he's fucking told, because he's a representative for the people that are getting him elected. Okay. So like the Bitcoiners are getting him elected. We are a powerful part of his representative base. We're putting up money. We're putting our money where our mouth is to do that. And he needs to march to the beat of our drum. Like if he doesn't free Ross day one, fuck him for life. You know what I mean?
Free Ross.
Yeah.
And like, I can definitely compromise on that. And a lot of people have been like, look, like I don't vote normally, but I will vote for Trump if he actually stands next to freeing Ross. And that's unequivocally important, like.
But that's the other thing. If one of ours is in prison for something that is unjust, then we really do need to act as a unit to get them out.
Well,
and we've been doing that for 10 years.
But that's already happening.
We've been doing that for 10 years with Ross. And, David Bailey deserves a lot of respect for that because he's been heading up that effort for a long time.
I mean, really happy what we did for Assange. Like,
check this out.
Well,
I come back to the house here to do an interview yesterday, right? And my son sends me this. I have nothing to do with it.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's
my
great.
kids with Lynn Ulbrich, and they understand.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Because it's bullshit what happened to Ross.
And look, like I'm not saying we should go do this, but like, let's talk about some Black Panther tactics in terms of liberating our comrades from their oppression.
Let's go and bust Ross out of prison.
Well, yeah, look, why shouldn't we?
Hold on. I'm just going to say, like...
And again, I'm just speaking theoretically. I'm not saying let's go do this. I'm just wondering if you have good reasoning for why we shouldn't do such things. Other than like our personal lives.
I need to think this one through.
And like I get like us sacrificing our lives to try to do something that probably ends in failure.
Listen.
That's bad.
I've thought a lot about this before, and it's like you can get so hyped up on Bitcoin that you feel the way that Erik is describing, which is like you feel like you want to martyr yourself for Bitcoin, right? But the truth is, I think you martyr yourself for Bitcoin by showing up every day, day in, day out, like
speaking freely.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you give your life, but you give your whole life. You give the entirety of your efforts.
This is some born again Christian stuff. No,
this is
like
real
you're
shit.
totally right.
I
like,
know.
I just hate that you're right.
The childish part of me really wants a fight here because like what's going on is so unethical.
It's epic to just throw your life away for the fucking justice of the cause, man.
Exactly.
But it's also the way you make meaningful change in the world is you show up every day, day in and day out, and you fucking push your agenda forward. Right?
Yeah, and so like I have to capitulate and say like you're probably right that the best thing that we can do is to make small and incremental changes towards the sort of Bitcoin world that we want.
Yep.
And we all have our own different fronts that we sort of run and do what we do on those fronts, And so like and again, like with the BPI thing, like they do really great work. They're guys that are on the inside working on legislation that could really change the outcome of things. I personally am on the outside and I want to agitate people to hold their own keys. Don't report what you're spending with one another to the government. Make sure that you actually understand and have robust cryptography and have your Bitcoin in multi-sig so that you can recover it in multiple jurisdictions if you need to. Both are important sides of the work. And, I oscillate on this a lot because I'm like, I got to redouble into my mission and really try hard. And then on the other side, I'm like, fuck it. I should just go hang out at my house with my kids and never leave.
Yeah, but like Bitcoin's a big tent now. You know,
think?
so yeah, I think so. I do because, you and I, we've got the same kind of end goal, but we're looking at it at different
You're an
ways.
anarchist too?
I definitely appreciate and have become more anarchist, But I want to be an anarchist that goes on the inside and just throws some hand grenades in there, things that nobody else is doing. But I want to attack from the inside.
So just to be clear, if we get you elected to parliament, you will be throwing hand grenades. I'm absolutely voting for that.
Metaphorical hand grenades.
I mean,
I'm just
okay.
Yeah, and look, I know what happened. I'll be cancelled, and they'll make some shit up about it. Like I know that, but like what I'm saying is, this. All right, it's a growing tent. It's a bigger tent, and lots of different because everyone needs Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't need them. It doesn't matter if you're a bluehead, progressive, Starbucks barista, or you're a fucking gun-toting redneck, or if you're the UK versions of those. Do we have UK versions of those?
Probably.
Yeah.
I find it hilarious that the far left hasn't actually picked up on how valuable and important Bitcoin is to like them as a movement.
100%.
But it is. But they are.
Some are. I think they're making progress.
I think we're classing the whole left as like this ultra left, crazy fucking blue haired. But there is a progressive Bitcoin movement, and I think who did the survey? Someone did.
Troy.
Yeah.
And it showed the Bell distribution was quite open.
I told Trey Walsh, she's one of the
Yeah.
We met up at PubKey, and I told him, I was like, I don't agree with fucking anything that you believe, but I still think your voice is important, and you should go out there and do your pod and have your coalition,
because it
speak
doesn't
to your people.
Because it doesn't matter whether you are left or right. We're all getting fucking ripped off.
100%.
I mean, and this is one of the most interesting things is that, like, I think part of this zeitgeist, it's turning out that, again, from what we were saying earlier, like, I think people are really, really hungry to have civil dialogue from both sides of the aisle where people have real conversations and talk about difficult topics and actually find good reasoning through it in a way that they can do that. That's just what you said towards progressives.
Right.
And I really think actually writing this zeitgeist, like, even though I have very dark ideas for how all this plays out, I actually think that like a progressive political movement from the inside, incrementally creating change, could actually happen because people are really hungry for it. And that's the thing that the current political climate is missing, is that like they want deep anonymity between people and for there to be no real dialogue about those disagreements.
Well, who's it working for right now?
It's working for the people at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's working for anybody.
It's working for Nancy Pelosi.
Cantillionaires, yeah.
Yeah.
People at the tippy top who are politically juiced into power.
Larry Fink's doing pretty well.
Right.
Well, and like, look, just how disgusting is it that we do have a class of people that are doing this? And to me, like, that's the thing we should be outraging about. Is that,
it's
like,
gross that
Nancy Pelosi literally is a representative from my state.
Right.
And, like, I need to deal with that fact despite my hate for her.
It's gross that we're playing a game. America's playing a game.
This is not just America, this is everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, especially in America, like, we're playing this game, free market
You're
capital.
playing it harder than everyone else.
We are, and we're winning. What's up, bitches? No, like, listen.
I don't know, man.
In America, we're playing this game, capitalism. It's like why one of the great insults you can call an American is a loser, because it's like you're losing the game. Like, you're a fucking loser, bro. And it's disgusting that we have a class of people who are immune from the rules of the game, who cannot lose the game, who have just, bailout immunity, bailout power. That's crazy. It's like when I used to play Monopoly, because I would always win, because I would cheat.
I would always cheat.
I would just steal all the, just
I'll be
hide
the
them
bank
in
this
the Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's so great playing with kids because you can do that.
They don't know you're cheating. Why does he always win? Like, what the hell? But yeah, that's disgusting, and it's abhorrent, and it's, unnatural, and it can't continue.
Have you ever played the socialist version of Monopoly?
You mean just regular Monopoly?
No, there is a socialist.
Monopoly was created by a communist to make children hate capitalism.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
That's
why it's always designed that people consolidate.
Have you realized every time you play it, somebody gets upset and flips the fucking board over? That's the point. That's the point of the game.
Well, you can buy the socialist version of Monopoly. I bought it and played it with my kids. I mean, it's fucking terrible. We should get that into everyone's hands. Like, you cannot win the game. You constantly cannot win.
Right.
It just fucking it's horrific.
Well, there's this bullshit about socialism or Marxism that, it's going to be equity. That's what they always say. It's going to be equity. We're all going to have ownership and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, what it always becomes is just it's dominator hierarchy, and it's nepotism. That's what it becomes, right? Like the children of, I have a friend who went to Columbia, New York, and it has a lot of, like, kids of Chinese billionaires there, and CCP members, et cetera, which is another conversation why we have that in an American institution. But he said basically, like, the kids that were the members, the sons of the members of the CCP, they were treated better than the kids that were the sons of billionaires, because they're juiced in politically. Like they are at the top of the system. They're higher up. If you're a billionaire in China, you're like Jack Ma. You can just be clipped at any time. It doesn't matter. But if you're a high-ranking party official, you can't be clipped. You know?
Well, unless those higher in the party decide it's time to clip you out.
Exactly. You can only be clipped by someone higher up than you.
Look, like it's just all authoritarianism at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
You know, because like Nancy Pelosi can't win the game because there's exceptions to the rule for the game for her. Like she literally can engage in insider trading and like
Openly.
yeah, like it's just like so bananas to me that we're like. People are like, but that's legal according to our law. I'm like, oh, okay, so like it's ethical now. And it's like, no, like legality and ethics have nothing to do with each other. And they're like, huh?
Nancy Pelosi just happens to be better at Warren Buffett, at trading. Like it's like totally normal. It's a coincidence, bro.
I just really
She's
want to
not
highlight
hearing
here
stuff in privileged conversations and then using it to trade the open public markets. Is that what you're saying? Like you're a fucking conspiracy theorist, dude.
how fucking embarrassing is it
Yeah.
that this 9,000-year-old woman or something like that
Who likes ice cream?
that she gets to openly trade against people in a way that would get anybody else thrown in prison, and that she's not held accountable in any way, and that she still gets to like ride around on this high horse about like whatever bullshit ethical principles that she's supposed to represent. Like it is truly insane. And like I just want to make sure that, like I didn't take crazy pills this morning, and that like I'm not on this journey to like this is actually happening.
Oh, it's happening.
And like this keeps happening of that, like we have to deal with these constant embarrassments of that. Like I think if a meteorite hit us right now and I was to meet my ancestors, they'd all be on the floor like laughing hilariously. Like one would be in a pile of piss and I'd be like, what's going on? We're like laughing at you about like how absurd of a little bitch you've become in your own life and reality, that like it is literally governed by these decrepit pieces of shit that like you could backhand and destroy, yet somehow that still runs most of your life. It's pretty sad.
Where do we go from there?
Well, like this is embarrassing though, right? Like this is our fucking country. We're like talking about the future of our children, and like none of us can predict in any meaningful way like what we can leave to our children, because how much the political establishment has absolutely fucked up every single economic and monetary standard that there is.
Yeah.
We literally have put our life savings into magic internet money from a man who we don't even fucking know, because our governments have failed us so miserably. And like 10 years ago, I was like, you know what? Magic internet money man who I don't fucking know, he's got a better idea than these dumb motherfuckers. So I'm just going all in on this.
God.
And if it doesn't work out, it's fucking better than participating in the war economy.
It's so fucking true. It's so true. That I had the exact feeling you had 10 years ago. I was like, okay, random Japanese guy, let's do this thing. Dude, fucking this is though the reason why we have to be involved in politics, is because if we're not involved, if we don't care, if we're not expressing ourselves with money and resources, we're going to get people that are just fucking scum plain awful. And listen, we're going to get bad people regardless, but we're going to get worse people without being in the arena.
All right. And my compromise is we just do our own third political party that refuses to integrate with either the Republicans or Democrats. Let's do it. We'll make the new all-American party that is specifically about this, whatever the fuck we represent.
Remember we did that pod and I asked Tulsi Gabbard if she wanted to join the Orange Party?
Yeah.
And she laughed. She was like, it's a joke. But it wasn't a joke,
guess
Tulsi.
it
It wasn't a joke.
So the Orange Party is it.
The Orange Party, yeah.
Right.
I mean, literally, like what you're seeing represented tomorrow is not a Republican Trump rally. That's bullshit when people are saying that.
Yeah.
It's the Orange Party. You're seeing the Orange Party represented, and emissaries from other parties, red, blue, gray, whatever tribe they come from, they come to the fucking Orange Party and they come correct and they repeat the things that we want to hear, or they get booed. And by the way, if Trump doesn't fucking say that, if he doesn't talk that bullish Bitcoin talk that we want to hear tomorrow,
We're going to crush him.
we better boo the fuck out of this motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Also,
Well, that's a really interesting point, because the Orange Party actually transcends all parties.
yes.
100%. And it also is, look at Troy Cross's data, okay?
Yeah.
Troy's a liberal, he's a progressive, but his data, I think, is good, which is that, Bitcoin is mainly nonpartisan, right? It skews younger. It's a wide demographic net, so that it's not just all young white males who've been dispossessed by the system. That's like the bullshit media narrative that you want to be fed. But we see people from all races, all ethnicities, all cultures, all religious backgrounds represented in Bitcoin.
It's basically DEI.
Well, but it's not DEI because it's like it's actual meritocracy, because the people that own those Bitcoins, they all deserve to own those Bitcoins no matter where they come from. Those are their Bitcoins. You know what I mean?
But within it, we have diversity.
Yeah, it's
There's a lot of equity.
Diversity is
This is all self-reported though. Like if we're actually looking at data on the Bitcoin blockchain, it is all homogenized through cryptographic data.
Right.
And like
We don't know.
That's the thing that actually makes it work. So
Yes.
like maybe I'm actually 500 black women that reported them myself to Troy's data. Like we can't know. Like I have faith that like it's real good data,
Yeah.
but to me like this is the point that it comes down to. Like look, like if it turns out that Satoshi Nakamoto was a dog, like that's just what it is. We'll never be able to prove it. So maybe it was a dog.
Listen,
I don't know, but that's important.
diversity is great when it happens as a result of a meritocratic system. It's great. It shows that something is working really well in your society. But when you enforce diversity, like by capita, like it doesn't make sense to do that because you're just putting the wrong people in the wrong jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you get it as a result of meritocracy, it shows that you have a beautiful and bountiful system. And guess which system that is? Bitcoin. You know?
Yeah, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to give a leg up to certain groups or who have been mistreated or
I don't know. Pure meritocracy. Pure meritocracy.
No, but
100%.
I
Nobody should be
personally-
held down because of the color of their skin or their
I don't
religious
mean that. It's
background.
like I launched my fund in Bedford, and that is
Yeah.
to give out a leg up to people who are economically challenged, who cannot do the things they want to do. And I'm okay with that. I'm
what
okay.
does the fund do?
It just gives money to kids who are talented and want to do something.
For soccer?
No,
Yeah.
no. Outside of soccer, I've done it to a girl who's going to arts college and she wanted extra tuition. I've given it to a badminton player, table tennis player, judo. Like,
Do you do some sort of a screen for meritocracy then?
No,
like, would
I
you
just-
give it to a kid who wanted to just sit around and play video games?
No. I mean, like, send me something and I read it and I like, do I like it? But like, I'm
Yeah.
given a leg up to people
Right.
who need a helping hand.
That's-
So that's
a
like
different-
a nice gift that you want to give.
That's,
them.
Yeah,
that's
but
a
it's not
by the
based
way,
on race.
That's a different thing than DEI. That's a process. What you're describing is a process called capitalization, where you're trying to make sure that people from impoverished backgrounds go to the high perches in society that they're rightfully ordained to go to, without all of the social inequalities that have kept them down.
But that's back to my point. I don't think
That's not about diversity though.
I didn't say
That's a process
diversity.
called
I didn't say
capitalization.
diversity though.
Yeah.
I said I've got no issue about supporting giving a leg up to people who've been very unfortunate in the situation they've been in. By birthright.
That's
Yeah, I
charity.
think that's a wonderful charity that
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
provide. And like if there was no apparatus up until the 20th century that was like, you can get a bunch of tax benefits for donating to poor people.
Yeah.
Like it turned out that like super rich people like actually like had stuff inside of them that like made them have feelings when they saw impoverished children that didn't get food. And they were like,
right.
I could like make a difference with that. It's like the same thing when Andrew Carnegie was like, hey, like these kids can't read.
Yeah.
Maybe I should build a library system. It wasn't like the American
Right.
government that showed up and was like, we got to educate all these poor dumb kids.
Yeah.
No, it was fucking Andrew Carnegie. And he made 2,200 libraries throughout the United States that he personally sponsored because he wanted to see greater literacy rates in people in the United States.
Or Rockefeller went and interrogated why Southerners were considered dumb and lazy, and he found out that they're all infected with hookworm, and then he attempted to eradicate hookworm in the first mass vaccination campaign. Right? Was that a good one or a bad one? Probably a good one, but
It's funny because this actually all leads to kind of the history of generalized eugenics projects.
It
that
does.
I call them
It
discrete
actually does.
eugenics.
Yeah.
But that'll be a different.
we'll do.
Well,
a
I guess
whole,
this is the last show, so there's no difference.
I don't know, man. I kind of think we got our mojo back.
What Bitcoin did is back on the menu.
Maybe we should change it. What did you say? What's the other day?
What BitBoy did.
No, what Bitcoin.
What Bitcoin's done?
What Bitcoin's gonna do?
what Bitcoin's gonna do.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
By the way, I will say that since this is we're nearing the end of your run as the controversial Bitcoin podcaster that you
I
are.
think I'm not controversial at all.
You're not in real life, but your Twitter game is intentionally controversial.
It was 4 years ago.
Yes.
You have the peanut gallery that's like constantly trying to like get some traction, but like They come to you and they go, Pete, I hate you. And you're like, I don't think about you at all.
I listened to some of
Man in
the
the elevator.
I listened to some of your early episodes that where you were still kind of shitcoining and you were trying to figure out your
That's
way
a long
through.
time ago.
Oh no, it was like 2017 or whatever.
Damn.
Like I remember listening to those and being like, hey, this guy's kind of dumb, but like I think he's on the right track. I think he's gonna get there, And then later you became like a full-fledged Bitcoiner.
No, but do you know what it is? It's good.
You know?
You talked about you found this Bitcoin thing 10 years ago. And you're like, I'm fully in with, because you knew there was a problem.
Well, no, hang on. There was like a long and fucked up process that happened to get
It's
there.
a good
that-
story. Have
Yes.
you heard the story?
Well, let me just tell you very quickly.
We should tell
I
Eric's story,
didn't
yeah.
have a long fucked up process that came to this. I had a very normal childhood. Yeah, England's a very easy place to live in.
I
It's
met
quite-
Pete's family. They're all very sweet, nice,
very
well-adjusted
civil.
people. Yeah.
I discovered Bitcoin because I wanted to buy cocaine on the internet and I wanted to get higher quality cocaine. And then I came back because I wanted to, but that led to me wanting to get cannabis or treat my mum when she was dying from cancer.
Yeah.
I didn't come in as an anarchist, had no problems in my life, had no problems with government, society, anything. I just got into it. So when I got into it and started making a podcast, I was talking to these people who all had these issues. And I was like, I don't. So I was pushing back. But what happened is over time, Bitcoin, mine's the reverse. I learned about these problems through it. So I had to go through, also had to be chewed up and go through it to get to where I've got to. And I think you can learn from A journey, B journey, C journey, D journey. I think mine has been useful for other people who've been on a similar one. Because what you had is people like you, like, why the fuck don't you get it now? Why are you a libertarian? Like, why do you believe in government? Why do you think it's okay to put a vaccine in you and shut you down? Like, people went at me hard on those things because they got there. I had to get there in my own time, and we've done it full circle. We've done.
But the world was way less crazy then too. Like it's easier to understand Bitcoin now than it was in 2017.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. But it is what it is. I got there in my own different way, but I didn't get there because I was told I had to be there. I got there because I questioned it and I went through a process, and that was my one.
Look, everybody
it's about-
has their own hero's journey.
I think-
and hearing about other people's hero's journeys inspire.
I think yours is about to be a little bit more interesting.
My hero's journey?
Yeah.
I like your story about getting into Bitcoin with like how desperate you were kind of personally feeling.
Yeah, like I was at the end of my rope, like really at the bottom. Like I was pretty much at the edge of suicide where I had really like made the decision that like it was time to die because this life was fucking meaningless. So it like...
Have you ever looked at the stats and the different methods for committing suicide? It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, you know what it mainly is in the United States?
Guns.
Gunshot.
But there are plenty of people who shoot themselves in the face and survive, and they live with fucked up. You can get all the stats: jumping off a car park. Oh, you don't die, you end up in a wheelchair, or
Yeah.
you try and suffocate yourself, and you end up a vegetative state.
That's why a lot of people choose hanging because there's usually a
100%.
Yeah.
Even though it's a fucking horrific way to die.
Yeah. Also, men choose methods that have a higher success rate than women. Women choose.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the highest in the UK. I don't know if it's the same as in the US. It's the leading cause of death for young men. Is
Yes.
suicide.
Well, no, it is not. Drug overdose is
Yes.
the first, and then it's suicide.
In the
Drug
US.
overdose
Yeah,
is
so-
sort
drug-
of.
is it-
Drug
Yeah.
overdose, they can't tell the difference between it.
Right.
So.
I think in the UK,
Whether it's intentional or
Yeah, so it just gets classified as drug overdose.
Yeah.
interesting. But I think in the UK, it is the leading cause of
Well,
death
like,
for young men.
so this is where I was at. I'm like working at a customer service job. Well, I mean, first through Occupy Wall Street and what I was doing there, I got kicked out of graduate school. I had to move home. I'm like going into a depressionary cycle after a manic cycle, so I'm like not good to be around at all. So my parents can't do that. We go into my girlfriend's dad's house. Same thing. 6 weeks later, he can't do it. Work for him at his moving company for $14 an hour. I remember that at that time, all the guys that come in would make fun of me for having a college degree and like being salutatorian and stuff. And like I'm like working a moving job in 2011. Like, haha, fucking loser. Yeah, like it sucked. I ran into my high school teacher at a grocery store when I was on break from the job, and I had to like run back to the truck and cry because I was so ashamed of who I was. So I was really at a place where I was like, fuck all this nonsense. Like Occupy Wall Street was right, but they didn't provide anything. In all honesty, like I had a transcendental experience where essentially God told me to like go all in, go as hard as you can, get as much as you possibly can. And I remember the deal I made with him was like pretty much like, he was like, look, like if you do this and it fails, kill yourself. You have every right to do it. If you do this and it works, you belong to me. It's like, all right, sounds like a pretty fair deal. Reverse Faustian thing going on, right? Turns out it worked, And not only did it work, but in it working, it forced me to go, why the fuck is this thing working? Why is magic internet money so important that it can do this function that nothing else on the planet can do? Which, like, he didn't really tell me at the time, but he put this like hook in my brain. So like I had to try to understand it. Because like this thing liberated me from this shitty and horrific existence of me hating myself to actually being free to be and do and behave however I wanted to. So I really needed to understand it. And as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper, I find myself in deeper and deeper and deeper philosophical territory, first starting with Austrian economics, then going into legal theory, then going into actual deep continental philosophy. And it turns out that this actually is the most important issue in humanity. And it's not because it normalizes money. It's not because it normalizes law. It's because it actually normalizes philosophy itself. And like it comes down to the very bottom about the nature of what truth is and how we functionally come to that understanding, and how historically and dynamically, when we've tried to do that, this substrate of language has always failed us. And now we get to speak and exchange with each other in terms of in my opinion, something that's transcendental to that. Like we're dealing with mathematical algorithms and with things that will never be repeated for all of human history. Like it's pretty fucking wild when you think about the fact that every single transaction hash is unique in and of itself and will never be repeated for all of human existence, no matter what. What does it mean that we now have a language that instead of speaking in words, we're speaking in naming? I spoke to you about this before, about the idea that we now have a grammar without language, but names. And this creates an extremely powerful function because no longer are we trying to get back to that normalization of like what we're trying to talk about, but we just go into the mathematical proofs of whether or not it's valid or not.
Oh, I'm done.
And the podcast.
That's it.
That's a wrap now.
That's a wrap. Oh my God.
Sorry,
you.
I'm a little drunk, a little
That was
high.
good. That was good. That's good.
If that isn't the fucking show clip,
No, that's definitely
it
the
has
show
to be
clip.
two of them shown.
That's definitely the show clip. Well, both. Maybe we'll do two.
Bro, thank you. Thank you both.
No,
Thank
just
you.
do it.
It's all, you guys are really good at what you do. So I'm really happy to see the transition to your next venture together.
Yeah, this is not goodbye. This is see you again soon. We're working on something new. Yada, yada. But thank you. And thank you for listening, everybody.